I joked my ex lasted longer. He packed his stuff that night and blocked me. I need to tell someone what I did. And you're going to think I'm a horrible person. But there's something about being intimate with someone you love that nobody really talks about. The thing is, I destroyed a 3-year relationship with 7 words during what was supposed to be a moment of connection. And while everyone's calling me cruel and heartless, they don't know what led up to that moment. They don't know about the months of feeling invisible, the conversations that went nowhere, or the part of me that wanted to hurt him exactly as much as I did. The worst part about what happened isn't that I made a joke comparing my boyfriend to my ex during sex. That's bad enough, trust me. The worst part is something I've never told anyone, not my best friend, not my sister, not even my therapist. It's the real reason those words came out of my mouth, and it changes everything about who the villain actually is in this story. If I don't tell this story the right way, you'll never understand why I'm still defending myself 6 months later while Marcus has moved on with someone new, and everyone thinks I got exactly what I deserved. But once you know what I know, once I show you what was really happening in our relationship, you'll see why that joke wasn't just a cruel slip of the tongue. It was something darker, something more calculated, and honestly, that's the part that scares me most about myself. I'm going to tell you everything, including what I found on Marcus's laptop 3 weeks before that night. And the part that makes me look worst, the part I'm almost afraid to admit. I'm saving that for later because you need to understand who I was before all this happened. You need to see how someone goes from being the kind of person who sends good morning texts and plans surprise birthday parties to someone who weaponizes intimacy. Let me start with this. I used to be the girlfriend who bragged about her relationship. Not in an obnoxious way, or at least I don't think so, but in that casual way where you drop little comments at brunch. Oh, Marcus loves that place, or Marcus always says the funniest thing about that. I was secure. I was happy. I was the friend that other friends came to for relationship advice because Marcus and I just worked, you know? We met at a marketing conference in Austin, which sounds boring but somehow wasn't. He was presenting on digital strategy and I was there representing my company, and we ended up at the same hotel bar during a thunderstorm that knocked out half the city's power. We talked for 6 hours straight, while the emergency lights cast everything in this weird yellow glow. He told me about his parents' divorce and how it made him want to do relationships differently. I told him about my ex, Derek, and how that relationship had ended badly enough that I'd almost skipped the conference entirely because I knew he'd be there. That should have been my first clue about how this would all end up, the fact that I was already bringing Derek into things on the first night. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Marcus and I dated long distance for 4 months before I moved to Denver for him. Before you judge that decision, I want you to know it wasn't just for him. I got a better job, a bigger apartment, a whole new start. But yeah, he was the main reason and I wasn't embarrassed about that. He picked me up from the airport with flowers and a key to his place, and that first year was exactly what you want it to be. The problems started so slowly I didn't notice them at first. Or maybe I noticed but didn't want to see them as problems. Marcus started working later, coming home after I was already in bed. He said his company was going through a restructuring and he needed to prove himself. That made sense. I worked late sometimes too. But then he started being distant even when he was home, scrolling through his phone during dinner, giving me one-word answers when I asked about his day. The sex changed too, and this is where I need you to really hear me. It went from being this connected, intimate thing to something that felt almost obligatory. We went from 3 or 4 times a week to maybe once, and when it did happen it was quick. Efficient, like he was checking it off a list. I tried everything to fix it. I bought lingerie, I suggested we try new things. I straight up asked him if something was wrong and he always said the same thing, I'm just stressed about work, babe, it's not about you. But here's the thing, it felt like it was about me. It felt like I was the problem he didn't want to deal with. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my company announced layoffs and I found out I was on the list. Marcus's response was to nod and say, "That's rough," without even looking up from his laptop. I'd been with that company for 5 years. I cried for 2 hours that night while he stayed in the living room watching YouTube videos with his earbuds in. That's when I started comparing him to Derek in my head. I didn't mean to do it, but the thoughts came anyway. Derek would have held me. Derek would have taken me out to dinner and let me vent and told me something ridiculous to make me laugh. Derek was a lot of things, and our relationship had been toxic in ways I didn't fully understand until after it ended, but he'd never made me feel invisible. I know what you're thinking. If I was so unhappy, why didn't I just leave? And that's a fair question, but relationships aren't that simple when you've moved your entire life for someone. Plus, I kept telling myself we were just in a rough patch. Every couple goes through this, right? The 7-year itch, except we were only at 3 years, but maybe we were just ahead of schedule. I tried to make things better. I really did. I planned a weekend trip to this cabin in the mountains, the kind of place with a hot tub and a fireplace and no cell service. I thought if we could just get away from everything, reconnect without the distractions, we'd find our way back to each other. Marcus seemed into the idea at first. He even helped me plan it, suggesting we go in October when the aspen trees would be changing. But the week before we were supposed to leave, he told me he had to cancel because of a work thing. A presentation he couldn't miss. I was devastated, but I tried to be understanding. This was his career. This was important. And I found out he'd lied to me, and everything I thought I knew about our relationship shattered into pieces I'm still trying to put back together. It was a Tuesday night, 3 weeks before the night everything ended. Marcus was in the shower and his laptop was open on the couch, playing some documentary he'd been watching. The screen dimmed and I went to move the mouse so it wouldn't go to sleep, just being helpful, and that's when I saw the message notification pop up. It was from his coworker, Shanna. I knew who she was. She'd been at the company Christmas party, blonde and smiley and the kind of confident that borders on aggressive. The message preview said, "Can't wait for this weekend. Should I bring the wine or are you handling everything?" This weekend. The weekend he'd told me he had to work. The weekend we were supposed to be at the cabin. My hands were shaking as I clicked on the message thread. I know I shouldn't have. I know that's a violation of privacy and trust and all the things that make me part of the problem here. But I did it anyway, and what I found made me physically sick. They'd been planning this trip for weeks. To a different cabin, one he'd rented without telling me. The messages were flirty but not explicitly sexual, at least not the ones I could see without scrolling back, which I was too frozen to do. Lots of winky faces. Lots of inside jokes. One message from him that said, "I need this break from reality. You get me in a way I forgot was possible." I sat there on that couch with his laptop burning my thighs and listened to the shower running and tried to process what I was seeing. He was cheating on me, or about to cheat on me, or at minimum planning a romantic weekend with another woman while lying to my face about it. But here's the twisted part, the part that makes me look almost as bad as him. I didn't confront him. I closed the laptop, put it exactly where it had been, and went to bed. When he came out of the shower and kissed my forehead and said goodnight, I pretended to be asleep. Why didn't I say anything right then? I've asked myself that question about 1,000 times. Part of it was shock. Part of it was fear of what would happen if I admitted what I'd seen. But if I'm being really honest, and that's what I'm trying to be here, part of it was something else entirely. Part of me wanted to see how far he'd go. Part of me wanted to gather evidence, to be absolutely sure before I blew up my entire life. And part of me, the worst part, wanted him to do it so I'd have a reason to do what I was already thinking about doing. Everyone online thought I was fine, but privately I was coming apart. I went to work and smiled and acted normal while spending my lunch break scrolling through his social media, looking for evidence of Shanna. I went home and made dinner and asked about his day while watching for tells, for signs of guilt. He gave me nothing. He was perfectly normal, or what had become normal for us anyway. Distant but polite, affectionate in that performative way that looks fine from the outside but feels hollow when you're in it. The weekend came and he left for his work presentation with an overnight bag and a kiss on my cheek. He texted me once that evening, "Presentation went great. Heading to dinner with the team. Love you." I stared at that message for 20 minutes, those 2 words at the end that meant nothing coming from someone who was probably sitting across from another woman at that exact moment. I did something I'm not proud of that night. I called Derek. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years, not since a drunk text exchange on New Year's Eve that had ended with both of us agreeing it was better if we didn't stay in touch. But I still had his number and I was alone in an apartment that felt too quiet, and I wanted to talk to someone who knew me before Marcus, before Denver, before I became this version of myself that I barely recognized. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Holy shit, is everything okay?" "Define okay," I said, and then I started crying. We talked for 3 hours. I told him everything about Marcus's distance, about the messages, about how I felt like I was disappearing in my own relationship. Derek listened in a way Marcus hadn't listened to me in months, asking questions, getting angry on my behalf, reminding me that I deserved better than someone who made me feel small. "You know what your problem is," Derek said finally. "You're so afraid of being the kind of person who gives up that you'll let someone treat you like shit indefinitely. You did the same thing with me, stayed way longer than you should have because you wanted to be the girl who makes it work." He wasn't wrong. With Derek, I'd stayed through his jealousy, his mood swings, his tendency to punish me with silence when he didn't get his way. I'd stayed because I thought love meant fighting for someone even when they weren't fighting for you. I'd only left when he'd finally given me an ultimatum about my male friends that was so controlling I couldn't justify it anymore. "So what are you going to do?" Derek asked. "About Marcus and his coworker." "I don't know," I said. "Confront him, I guess, end it." "Or," Derek said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, "you could do what he's doing, see how he likes it." I laughed, but it wasn't really funny. "I'm not going to cheat on him, Derek. I'm not saying cheat, I'm saying stop making yourself small for someone who doesn't appreciate you. Go out, have fun, remind yourself that you're the catch here, not him." After we hung up, I felt different. Not better exactly, but clearer. Like I'd been given permission to stop trying so hard to save something that was already dead. Marcus came home Sunday afternoon with a gift, a scented candle from the hotel gift shop, the kind of present that screams I forgot about you until the last minute. He asked about my weekend and I lied as easily as he had. It was fine, quiet, I caught up on work stuff. That week was when I started planning my revenge, though I didn't think of it that way at the time. I thought of it as self-preservation, as taking back some power in a relationship where I felt powerless. I started going out with coworkers after work, posting pictures on Instagram of me looking happy and free. I bought new clothes. I got my hair done. I flirted with the bartender at our usual place, just enough to feel desired again, but not enough to cross any real lines. Marcus noticed. Or he noticed. You seem different, he said one night, and there was something in his voice I couldn't quite read. Suspicion maybe, or guilt. Different how? I asked. I don't know, happier I guess, more like yourself. The irony was so thick I almost choked on it. I was more like myself because I'd stopped investing in us, because I was planning my exit, because I was doing exactly what he'd been doing for months. But I just smiled and said, I'm trying to focus on the positive, you know. Just when I thought I had everything figured out, that I'd emotionally detached enough to end things cleanly, Marcus did something that complicated everything. He planned a date night. A real one, not just Netflix and delivery. He made reservations at the restaurant where we'd celebrated our first anniversary, the place with the tasting menu and the sommelier who took wine pairings way too seriously. He bought a new shirt. He shaved. He was trying, actually trying, in a way he hadn't in months. I know I've been distant, he said over the amuse-bouche. Work has been insane and I've let it take over everything.